And we are rolling on June 8th, where we are coming to a conclusion on the course COM 102. And we're going to express some final thoughts on critical thinking, what we've learned, what we know, what John Passmore had to teach us, what we know about critical thinking, how our BS detector is doing, the authorities in our lives, and how well we follow the format. And we're going to hear first from Olivia.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Olivia.
Hi, Olivia.
So I came to this class with little experience or knowledge on public speaking or debate in general. But despite that fact, I'm now finishing this class with a much better understanding of both of those skills and confidence that I'll be able to tackle whatever public speaking endeavors come my way. So the first day of class we were presented with 13 learning objectives, and throughout the course we've been given assignments, lectures, and experiences that have helped us master each one. Professor Miller's lectures taught us the meaning of words like assertion, reasoning, and evidence. Our argumentation journals asked us to then take this information we learned in this class and apply it to our own lives. And I remember when I was first doing this assignment, I thought, I'm never going to have enough experience to fill this entire journal. I don't even have any arguments with anybody in my life. Except for it turns out I was wrong, and I actually had tons of experience to build off of for this assignment. So in constructing our briefs, we learned how to construct an argument, how to back it using credible and reliable research, how to participate in a debate. We learned how to construct questions and identify weaknesses in our opponent's arguments. And we learned how to analyze and evaluate the quality and recency of their research. And as audience members, we were tasked with perhaps what is the most important task, which is learning to evaluate both parties, determining whose arguments were the best, most credible, and the most convincing. And as this course comes to a close, it becomes clear to me that these skills are important not only for the purposes of this class, but for the purposes of life. Cumulatively, these assignments taught us a wide range of skills, regardless of whether your dream is to go into law or business or whatever else. I don't doubt that the lessons you learned in this course will serve to help you throughout your life. And what is perhaps the greatest gift given to all of us by this course is the development of our bullshit detectors. Each course requirement helped us to cultivate this detector in some way or another. Our argumentation journals asked us to evaluate the reasons that were given to us, and our briefs asked us to perform research using reputable resources and to evaluate other resources that our opponents used, pinpointing inaccuracies, exaggerations, and fallacies. And finally, our role as an audience member allowed us to take a step back and look at this debate as a whole, evaluating all the components together. So we learned how to take a second look at the information given to us and say, says who? This concept is better articulated by John Passmore in the article, Teaching to be Critical. Passmore says, the fundamental difference between the educator and the indoctrinator is that the indoctrinator treats all rules as inherent in the nature of things, as not even conceivably bad rules. The educator, on the contrary, welcomes criticisms and is prepared to admit that he does not always know the answers to them. Through this class, we have all become educators. We've learned to criticize, to question, and more importantly, to accept criticism of our own performances. I want to end with a story. So my father is an aerospace engineer, and he's really, really smart, and he knows everything there is to know about the field, but when I was younger, he used to have this huge fear of public speaking, and he used to have to go to a doctor to get anti-anxiety medication just to give presentations at work. So even though he was super smart, he was having all these issues with public speaking. And I remember when I was little, I was super shy, and I told my dad, I don't want to have to go into a career where I have to talk to a lot of people. And my dad told me that there's no such career. So part of life is public speaking, and if you can do it in an effective and an efficient way, then you'll be much better off.
Thank you. Okay, do I have your outline?
No, we haven't.
Do I have your paper?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. I keep over here.
And then I'll pick up.
Okay. Okay.
I'm Yang.
Hi, Yang.
Yeah, hi. My story with BS detector goes way before this class. It was the end of my elementary school, and my dad got accepted to be a visiting scholar at Harvard University. So my whole family moved to Boston for a year. And then before I came to the United States, I had no idea what this country was like. So I asked my dad, what is US like? And my dad told me, everything in the United States is better than China. The sun is brighter, the sky is bluer, the air is cleaner, and even the moon in the United States is rounder than the Chinese moon. So you all know what I found out when I got here. So I looked up in the sky at night and found out that it was exactly the same old moon that I had seen in China for 11 years. And it was the exact same moon, scientifically speaking. So from then on, I learned not to believe everything that others tell me, whoever the teller was, like a professor, a teacher, any kind of expert. Actually, the only thing the professors say that I trust completely right now is about the syllabus. So unfortunately, not every kid where I'm from gets a chance to observe the roundness of America's moon. And a lot of them, especially the hardworking good kids, act like the subjects in Milgram's study. They just believe what teachers and the authority tell them, and they don't doubt it. They don't doubt it because it's so easy to just follow everyone tells them, and then to blame everything on the authority when it's wrong. But then who suffers in the end? It's them. It's them who don't doubt about the things others tell them. So that's enough about sad things that happens in my country. So fortunately for you guys and for me, we're in an environment and in a class that embraces critical thinking. Over the course of the debates, I learned about how to interpret numbers and stats critically. The interpretations can be biased toward one side or the other, depending on whether proposition or opposition uses them. I know now that there is some evidence on both sides of the arguments. There are some policies that work somewhere, and there are some that failed. Prioritizing something doesn't mean people don't do anything about the things that aren't prioritized. And whether global warming and climate change is real, what really means is still uncertain because there are many factors out there, and it's difficult to study them out. I know now that things aren't binary, and maybe the best solution is somewhere in the middle, a compromise. Life is like a debate. Every day in our life, we get bombarded by all kinds of information that tries to persuade us or inform us or deceive or clarify things for us. People provide us with evidence, like pictures, videos, and what authority says. However, life is not a debate. In debates in this class, we tend to vote for people with better looking evidence, with good auras, with more confidence, and all kinds of reasons. In real life, there just happens to be some scientists out there who do great science but aren't good speakers or good lecturers. Evidence might be good looking, but with Photoshop, it's hard to tell whether a picture is truthful. And I know and you know that people tend to selectively set evidence that support their own arguments. It's very important for us to keep our BS detector alarmed and think about other people's argument, just like what we have done during the commenting part of the debates in this quarter. And we don't just need the BS detector for other people's argument. We need that for our own. When I got my journals back, I was surprised to see there were like logical fallacies written all over the commenting part. But that just shows that my BS detector wasn't up for my own argument. We need to look over self-deception. So information and arguments are like products on the market. A good or bad cover doesn't necessarily indicate the quality of the content inside. And in the end, I just want to say that BS detector told me that America's moon wasn't any more rounder than Chinese moon. It tells us to question people's logic and evidence during cross-examination debates this quarter, and I'm sure it will benefit us much more in the coming future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. What about Victor Wu?
Right here. Am I supposed to be up?
You're supposed to be next, yeah.
It's not an hour, I just smashed that. Sorry. Okay. go on time?
Yep.
Rock and roll, Victor.
Hi. Hello everyone, my name is Victor.
Hi, Victor.
First off, I'd like to start off by saying that I really enjoyed this class and it's been an honor learning how to debate with you all. We've come a long way. If there's one thing I'll remember from this class, it would be David and Sapan's cross-examination. And why do I say that? Why is it that out of everything I learned out of this class, I'll be thinking about David or Sapan when someone comes up to me and asks me what I think about Com 102 with Professor Miller? The answer is that we normally avoid argumentation, so much to the point that if an argument is happening in front of us or we find ourselves in an argument, we become to feel uneasy and uncomfortable, and it even manages to become a highlight of our day. There's a negative connotation to the word argue, and it's somehow become lame or not cool to argue with people. I used to argue all the time when I was younger, and then I found out the hard way that that's not the best way to make friends. And as we come to that realization, we actively try to avoid confrontation so that we get people to like us. Basically, is the end of it. In fact, we may even choose to silence our own opinions because the benefit of proving your point or winning an argument isn't worth the cost of potentially embarrassing someone or trapping yourself in an awkward situation. So as a result, we become unfamiliar to the context of argumentation. I don't know about anyone else, but sometimes when I find myself in an argument, I just say the stupidest things because it's in the heat of the moment, and then when I already walked away from the scenario, I'll be replaying it over and over, wishing I had to this or that. So that kind of frustration and not being able to articulate as well as I'd like is kind of part of the reason why I wanted to take this class. I wanted to see people in a setting where it was perfectly acceptable if they were encouraged to argue, and now I'll kind of share some of the things that I learned throughout this class. Number one, I was surprised to learn that the textbook had over 500 pages of material. It was also interesting to learn that arguments can be deconstructed into its component parts like warrants, grounds, claims, and it can be represented with like visual graphs and linking arrows. To be honest, there was a lot about argumentation that I did not know about prior to taking this class, and there's a lot to debates that I did not know about prior to taking this class. It was interesting to me to learn about the differences between fact, value, and policy, and how your criterion changes depending on which one you're in. It was also interesting about the importance of defining certain phrases and emotions, such as what does it mean to be immediate, what does it mean to be catastrophic, and it kind of added a complex element to the debates that I was initially unaware of. From those class debates, I also learned that you should not argue for the sake of arguing, but rather argue to gain adherence from the decision makers. Bez actually kind of pointed this out earlier, but it's actually important to sound smart and be relatable to the audience. You can have the most logical argument and support it with a mountain of evidence, but if you're hard to follow or if the audience doesn't believe you, then your argument pretty much falls apart. So those are some of the lessons I learned from attending class and reading the course textbook. I would say that the bulk of my critical thinking from this class occurred from writing the 12 journals. In the beginning of the quarter, Professor Miller had us talk about our standards of reason and what makes our BS detector go off. He also asked us to write 12 journals, and I think this class has forced us to become more introspective and really evaluate our own communication skills and how we communicate with the people around us. The 12 journals definitely helped me self-evaluate and encourage critical thinking behaviors such as question people's evidence, list out as many unstated assumptions as possible. And I believe that making us aware of things that otherwise would go unnoticed is basically the essence of John Passmore's essay. I'll share a quote with you that I believe captures the theme of his paper, and it goes as follows. Habit diminishes the conscious attention with which our acts are performed. This means that if we leave everything up to habit and rarely question things we hear, we lose our ability to think critically. I believe that habit has a strong association with the word comfort. We become comfortable in avoiding confrontation and go throughout our day minding our own business. I'm not advocating that we argue at every opportunity to do so, but I'm simply sharing that we will make ourselves unfamiliar to the context of argumentation if we seldom practice it. Therefore, I challenge myself and others to listen to that voice inside your head that doesn't always agree with everything it hears. Thank you.
Thank you. Verse 7. Hi.
Hi.
You here to see me?
Yeah, I'm just here to tell me come turn it in.
Oh, turned it in. Okay, turned it in, yeah. Okay, is this there? And all its glory. Okay, well, I guess I'll stop class and look at it. Okay, good. This is You're supposed to deliver this, right?
Yeah, but
So can you wait till the end of this class?
what time is that?
2:30.
Sorry for disrupting.
Okay. Okay. That was interesting. Okay, back to reality. Okay, now we're on Lana. Hi, Lana.
Hello.
Let me get you in focus.
Hi, Lana.
Okay, rock and roll, Lana.
Alright. Hey, everyone. So, I hope I'm not just repeating myself from last week, so bear with me, but, yeah, so when I came into this class, I really thought that the purpose of it was to learn argumentation, and I thought that's kind of all I would be taking away from the class. I came into it thinking that I knew everything that I could or needed to know about climate change, so I wasn't really looking to learn more about that or have my opinion swayed or anything like that. And it wasn't until we watched The Great Global Warming Swindle, on I think like the second or third class, and I realized we weren't watching it for satirical purposes, that I realized that there actually is an argument to be made against my rock-solid opinion. So the three things that I really took away from this class that I found most important were critical thinking and the importance of presentation, and also just general academic debate format, and some of the more some of the sides of argumentation that you don't normally associate with just the word argumentation. So to begin with critical thinking, it's something that we talk about throughout the course, and I guess for that reason it's probably one of the things that I'll remember the most about this class. It really is a pervasive skill to have. It's very interdisciplinary. It's useful in pretty much every aspect of real life. Whether it's the people that you choose to surround yourself with, especially if you're in a work environment or something, you want to make sure that people are, you want to think about their intentions, their motives, I don't know, and be able to think critically about the way that you interact with them. Also, just day-to-day living. If you're a consumer, you want to make smart choices. You don't want to just buy whatever you see in front of you. You have to make educated decisions. So that it really just across the board is a useful skill to have, and I think that probably everyone in this room has developed in that skill a little bit, hopefully. We also saw in this class the importance of presentation. So the audience proved that you could come up here to the front of the room with an unpopular opinion and still win over the room by being professional and prepared and organized, and having good communication skills. This is another really important skill to have in the real world. If you go into a job interview and have, your credentials may not be as impressive as the person that is going to walk in after you, but if you present yourself more skillfully and have better communication skills, it'll really go a long way. So that's another thing that I'm grateful for this class for honing in on. I think also as audience members we learned how to be active listeners, and we learned how to give constructive feedback, and to really not just kind of let people's words go over your head, but to pay attention to what they're saying and how they're saying it. And I think that was something that was valuable in this class as well. Through the journals that we had to keep throughout this quarter, I think a lot of us probably looked at it as a nuisance and just, kind of busy work, but it also really was good in, helping us, I think, to pay attention to the interactions we have on a day-to-day basis. I know for me, it really made me pay attention to the way that, like, my roommates in my apartment interact, or my friends, or, like, myself with my parents or different authority figures. And even in the world of mass media, where we were, asked to look at commercials and things like that, and it really, I had no idea going into this class that argumentation was such a pervasive and kind of interdisciplinary, I guess, practice. So going forward, after this class, I can say pretty confidently that I think I'll be a much more skeptical and critical observer of the world and consumer of I guess, goods and information. And I certainly don't devalue the things that I learned in my climate change course that I took at UCLA last quarter, but going forward I'm definitely more interested in learning about opposing opinions and kind of not just going along with my opinions and exploring other viewpoints. So, thank you.
Thank you, Lana. Okay, Robin Wells.
What do you mean?
Okay, you are blue. I need a black pen. Okay, I'll go to blue.
Black. Let's go. Yeah.
Should I start?
Mm-hmm. Your sunglasses. Can you lose the sunglasses?
They're on my head.
Is that part of your image?
No, I just have messy hair today. I didn't make a baseball hat, okay?
Okay. Rock and roll, Robin.
Okay. In the pursuit of certainty, people often think that employing critical thinking will lead to good critical decision making and absolving any uncertainty. Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, argumentation and critical decision making require one to open up your mind to alternative ideas and for the inevitable, the uncertainty that we all dread. As an essential feature of critical thinking that I learned in this class is that I need to be more self-aware and to have kind of a mental dialogue to where I can process my ideas ahead of time before I get up in front of the class and deliver an oral debate. I think it's helpful. It helps you to kind of hear it and process it and adjust it as well. So I think I'll be practicing that skill a little more. And I also need to learn how to calm down because being in front of everyone makes me extremely nervous. And then, there are other aspects of what I learned in Professor Miller's class, which I found really interesting, was the Toolman's model, where there's the claim, ground, warrant, and backing. And I also appreciate the 9 points of argumentation. Additionally, I believe that in terms of fracking, I learned quite a bit on this topic, and I really, truly believe that I was kind of anti-fracking until Wyatt and I really delved into it together. We were doing our research, and there were some solid facts there that were really something to stop and think about and consider, especially the economics and the jobs and the fact it could be safe. So I learned quite a bit from that. And then secondly, I think I also learned how to look at climate models. I always took all of this scientific research for its face value, kind of like spoon-fed through the media and accepted it and never challenged it. So I'm really grateful to Professor Miller for pointing all these things out. And I also really appreciate the fact that Professor Miller also posted a lot of stuff on the class website. So it was great to be able to go to the rhetoric, the rhetorical fallacies, and to look things up and to kind of process that and think about how those apply. I was actually shocked. I watched a congressional hearing, and I saw senators doing this to scientists during the debate, the climate debates, and I was kind of shocked that these professionals would use that ad hominem, against a scientist. I was actually really shocked, and it still kind of sticks in my mind. So I realize that they do get abuse if they kind of have a counter argument or perspective to the global climate change agenda. And in closing, I would like to say that my BS detector has gotten a little bit better, and I also believe that my critical thinking skills are also better. I kind of look a little more deeply at claims that people are making and go and look into it a little bit more because, as I just said, I'm not going to take anything at face value anymore, even when it's in the news.
Thank you. Okay, that'll bring us to Casey Wang. What is the time on her? 3:15. You were short. Okay.
Hi, Casey.
Hi.
Hi, Casey.
Sorry, show it red. Give me a red pen.
I want to do it in blue now.
So do you want to give me a red pen? Wait.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, you're tall.
Swap. Waltz and sing.
Be a long 4 minutes.
Oh, there you go, Casey.
Should I start?
Where's that?
Alright. Hi guys. My name is Casey.
Hi, Casey.
So oddly enough, I actually came into this class with greater confidence in my critical thinking ability than I came out of it with. And ironically, I think that means the opposite in terms of the actual skill and the meaning of that statement, right? So maybe I should have more confidence in my critical thinking at this point. So what is critical thinking? In middle school, it's 2 lines of a response in addition to, the basic, right? In high school, maybe 4. Now, don't say underestimate UCLA. I was well prepared for maybe even a page, real critical thinking. Well, Professor Miller here has kind of taught me through this course that that's not really the case. It's much more than that. As John Passmore's essay on teaching to be critical thinking states, teaching facts and drilling habits may give the outward appearance of being critical, but it's not truly teaching critical thinking. And it's really hard to teach critical thinking because it makes the teacher look bad. It's hard to teach. You need to question everything. So what is it? I may not know the answer still to that question, but over the course of the debates, the movie, the debates, and the journals, I think I've come a little bit closer, at least to honing my critical eye. So let me tell you a bit about that. The catalyst for my kind of opening of my eyes to what critical thinking was, and the fact that I didn't actually have it when I came into this class with my 2 to 4 to page-long response, preparedness. And that was the great swindle, or the great global warming swindle. During this 2 hours, I went on a bit of a roller coaster. Let me take you along with me there. For the first 20 to 40 minutes, I sat there with my arms crossed in disbelief. What is this? It can't be true. Never have I been more critical, ironically. By the hour mark, I was already searching, Professor Miller's expression, his posture. What's the trick here? What's the hitch? I didn't believe it still. After that point, when he wasn't budging, I began to think to myself, maybe they have a point. So before the foofy British actor that voiced the narration seemed a little bit off-putting, I was like, hey, they need it, right? Sure. But now, instead of questioning the Harvard professor that sat there, giving his case for the movie, I began to think maybe he has a point. Would I have accepted this on the other side? Absolutely. And that's when I thought, hey, I've been kind of, making an early decision here. I haven't been thinking critically about it. I wasn't questioning authority as I should have been. And that's when I started doing that. Through the debate, last time I talked to you guys about how I opened my eyes there and, started thinking more about, what it means to be critical, opening my eyes, kind of taking a step back from bias. And as I moved on through the journals, I was able to further hone this. In one of my classes, I noticed an example of the Milgram experiment, where people weren't listening to, were blindly listening to the professor when it was an exercise in futility, really. From there, my BS detector has been, continuously going up. And I thank those journals for helping me practice that skill. So, in conclusion, this class has really helped me with my critical thinking, and I'm glad to have revived my initial statement. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Yeah. You keep this one, or
Yes, this one.
okay. Okay, we'll bring up another group of 5. Wyatt Earp, CVAC, Julia, Heesung, and Susanna. Oh, Susanna. Don't you cry for me. See, I've never heard that before, have I?
I do.
Glad I was original. Okay, Wyatt, I am in green.
Yeah.
What?
You sing so, Susanna?
Oh, Susanna, yeah, it's a great song.
Who sings that?
Dolly Parton.
Dolly Parton?
Dolly Parton.
Okay.
Okay, class, house come to order, please. Okay, come to order, please. Okay, Mr. Wyatt Earp, begin.
Sweet. So, I consider this class to be the capstone to my educational experience here at UCLA. You see, with every other class, I have to listen to every word that comes out of the professor's mouth, soak it up like a sponge, and then regurgitate it on every assignment that I ever turn in. However, this was the first course that allowed me to stop and think, do I support that argument? Is this something that I can actually agree with? And I realized that these are questions that everyone should take a chance to think about when we are bombarded with facts and opinions in today's information age. And I have this class to think a lot for, because the lessons that I learned about critical thinking are like putting on a new pair of glasses, seeing the world through a sharper image, being able to discern what is a solid argument and what is BS. And after reflecting on this class, I like to see it as kind of a journey with stepping stones. You see, at the beginning of this course, we are encouraged to take a stand for Jesus or Buddha, voice our opinions, and back it up through the R model by asserting our argument, our reasons, and our evidence. And by doing so, we reflected on the reasons that people gave, and then something inconceivable happened. We began to look at the reasons we had for our own opinions. We began to debate a topic that the class nearly had a consensus for, global warming. I mean, it's one of the most controversial issues of our generation. And we had to watch movies that gave unpopular opinions to us. I remember when I was watching The Great Climate Swindle, I felt uncomfortable because I didn't agree with many of the arguments that they were making, but I realized my BS detector wasn't going off. And then I began to relook at the arguments and say, that's a solid point. And the same goes with these debates. I didn't realize that I would even vote for the opposition for most of these things at the beginning of the quarter, but I realized there's a lot more things to consider than just my personal opinions. The beautiful thing about these exercises is that they don't stop in the classroom. You see, the BS detector started going off for different reasons and arguments that people gave me every day. You see, or the lack of. See, when I stopped giving reasons for a lot of things, I realized that I was embarked with shock and awe. What do you mean you don't want to hang out with me tonight? Why? No reason. And then they were mad at me. So one of the things I learned that day is how controlled we are by reasons. Maybe not even the best reasons, but the fact that we just want something. And that allows us to open up to logical fallacies that we fall into every day, like generalizations or appeals to authority. You see, like when I watch a Snickers commercial, for instance, you're not you when you're hungry, therefore you need to eat the Snickers and you'll return to your persona. So I realized that I fall into that fallacy. And then when I went home the other weekend, I realized that my parents were practicing a tactic in the Milgram experiments. They repeated an order until I finally fulfilled it. Wyatt, take out the trash. You need to take out the trash. It's essential that you take out the trash. Wyatt, finally I took out the trash. But this was a strategy. They were the authority figures in my life, and I appealed to them. So, in summary, this class encouraged us to discern the truth for ourselves. It's not just in class, but in life. It allows us to be masters of our own mind. Filter through the crap, but not strike down a good argument from an opposing viewpoint. It puts us in uncomfortable positions, hearing information that we're not used to, and we evaluated if our reasons and opinions held up to reasons of others. It exposed how often we live life appealing to fallacies in this world, and whether it's watching TV or taking out the trash. And I would suggest that every student should take this class, because it encourages us to be proactive in critical thinking long after this class concludes. Thank you.
Thank you, Wyatt. 4-2. You want to?
Oh, yes. 9.
Do I have your outline?
I only have one copy. I should have made 2.
History repeats itself. Your dog ate its homework.
Wasn't it you who gave it your mom?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I don't, Professor.
Yeah?
So if she just wrote out an outline, you don't care anymore because she already went, right?
What?
If she already went, you don't care what the outline anymore, right?
Yeah, I want the outline. Yeah.
This is yours.
Oh, this
You keep
is.
this because I have the paper.
Okay, well, here we go with Mr. Sivak.
Alright. Hello, my name is Sam.
Class, come to order, please.
Throughout the process, I've learned to eradicate the naive assumption that evidence is the most important factor. In this last speech, I will address what I've learned and what I now know. Then I will go on to speak about my BS detector and its evolution. One major thing I've learned is presentation. It's about having direction, to know what goal you are trying to reach as you pass on a message, and to show that you have already tackled the opposition's concerns in the process. I've also learned that it's about being organized. I found it vastly convincing when a person, before beginning, boils things down to a simple statement. I also thought providing an outline was very helpful. Although I thought an outline and organization was necessary, I also found that if unexpectedly the opposition raises a new argument, the debaters should be ready to make strict changes to their outline. I've also learned that the debaters should try to zero in on the opposition's major arguments and address them. You must always be ready. This entails knowledge of your own stance along with the opposition's stance. Not only should you know the flaws that exist within your own arguments and research, but in the opposition's as well. To detect flaws within arguments. To know whether the evidence they provide was truly represented. For instance, the scientist that they are quoting might be a public policymaker who is advocating climate change, whereas the opposition might use the research to argue against it. Another small but important factor was research should be up to date. Another important factor that we can truly observe in American politics is to try to differentiate yourself from the opposition's tone or attitude. For instance, if the opposition is yelling, it might be well to act calm and composed. Another indirect persuasive factor was posture and clothing, to show professionalism by dressing a certain way and having a straight back instead of a hunched one. It doesn't end there. I've learned the importance of confidence, the suppression of the opposition's point of view, charisma, the ability to oscillate from seriousness to witty remarks, energy, and most importantly, taking into account practical aspects of one's arguments. So what do I now know? I now know that everyone is prone to persuasion. The strength of doubt is strong, and the strength of words even so. I now know to scrutinize individuals who use words as a means of persuasion. I now know to invest more attention to people's actions rather than people's words. If a politician speaks of climate change, they better not be driving a Hummer. What I have most importantly learned is critical thinking entails communication. The only way I can find out rebuttals, refutations, wrongs, biases, and weaknesses in my way of thinking is by debating. This class has taught me just that. When I first encountered the BS detector, I thought of looking outside. I thought of looking at my opponents and finding faults, biases, and the like. But as the class progressed, my looking glass changed completely. Instead of looking out, I now look in. I know I have biases, particular ideas, big ones and small. I know my opponent has the same. But I also know both I and the opponent must succumb and obey the same end. Both I and my opponent must accept what is true out in the world the same way, 1 + 1 = 2. I have learned from this class that it is imperative that I develop as an individual to argue for the truth, because the truth transcends and wins the debate. Thanks.
Thank you. See you back. Okay. Okay, Julia.
Hi, my name is Julia.
Hi, Julia.
I came into this class firmly believing that global warming was a threat, but after these debates, I have greater uncertainty about the severity of global warming and the short and long-term implications due to your effective briefs. While I have greater uncertainty, I've learned valuable lessons about critical thinking, effective communication, and improving my BS detector. I say you need to strengthen your BS detector because if you don't have good critical thinking, you'll believe in other people's BS. You'll get used by them, and you're more likely to get taken advantage of. Passmore's article asks the question, are you born a critical thinker, or is it a skill that you develop? I believe that everybody is born to differing levels with the capacity to be critical, but critical thinking is still a muscle to be exercised, to be practiced, to be grown. And with practice, you can train your critical thinking muscle to be stronger. Conversely, if you don't use it and you let it wither away, you'll be easily swayed by sensationalism and the constant BS pervading media and the real life. God damn it, Susanna. Okay, so what have we learned?
Right one.
I believe that my critical thinking skills have improved. I've learned about refutation, proper cross-examination techniques, and how to present good evidence, and I'm able to use these guidelines in judging debates. Emotional appeals, personal anecdotes, and clear logic work great. Credibility and stage presence won many debates. It's interesting to see how the debaters who painted a better picture performed better than the people who perhaps had more scientifically stronger evidence, but not as persuasive a delivery. In class, we watched 2 documentaries, An Inconvenient Truth, which effectively utilized the poor drowning polar bears and the great global warming swindle, their appeal through authority as they rolled out masses of acclaimed scientists. Each side had their own message and each their own fallacies, and our BS detector let us see where the emotional appeal was spread on too thick and question the validity of the data. Like the Milgram experiment, I've learned how I blindly follow authority figures, and I will strive in the future to be more critical and question evidence no matter the source. So what happens when you don't have a good BS detector? Let's talk about the consequences in real life. And let's use a real-world example and talk about money, because you guys know how much I like money. If you don't have a good BS detector, people are going to rip you off. Car loans, mortgages, housing, all these. So why do people give BS? I say it's because the BS serves them better than the truth. That's why they give the BS instead of the truth. And to reiterate my thesis, if you don't have a strong BS detector, you're going to get taken advantage of. I teach personal finance to high schoolers, and the amount of BS they've picked up on finance, most likely from their parents, which is another example of blindly following authority, is staggering. I've heard just plain BS, like, if you want to improve your credit score, don't pay off your entire balance, leave a little money on. That's pure BS. Let's look at the facts. The main thing your credit score is comprised of is the timeliness and completeness of paying off your balance. The exact opposite of the BS that people believe. So let's see, how do credit card companies make money? Because if you spend $1,000 every month and then you pay off $1,000 every month, they're not going to make any money off you and you'll have a good score. Critical thinking is looking at facts and finding out whom the BS is benefiting and making an informed decision. Bottom line, in the future, guys, pay off your credit cards in full every month. You'll get a good credit score for free, and anybody who tells you otherwise has drunk the BS Kool-Aid or is profiting off your mistake. In conclusion, I've learned to always be examining and to not be afraid to question authority figures. With technology and information spread around in our current system, it's even more important to have a strong BS detector, because the consequences of not having one are dire. For example, you might still be waiting on your millions from that Nigerian prince who messaged you on AOL. You might even think that there's tons of hot, sexy singles in your area waiting for you now. Click now. And you just might, even carry a balance on your credit card. Therefore, be critical, always be enhancing your BS detector, and in the words of John Passmore, strive to see things clearly and truly and judge them fairly. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Good. Is it there? No.
It's yours.
Hi.
Because of these. So,
Okay. Old Susanna. Okay, what color am I? I'm blue.
fix camera.
Ooh, you're tall. Okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Susanna.
Hi, Susanna.
Hello. I want to begin by touching on the points of Passmore in his article on teaching to be critical. He began the article by asking the following questions. Is being critical a habit? What does it mean to develop a habit? Does it mean we begin to think of everything critically? Or is it critical thinking a skill that needs to be taught and followed up with training to master those acquired skills? What about having it as a character trait? When we call someone critical, we're usually referring to their personality trait. In response to all these questions Passmore asked in his article, I think that critical thinking can be all of the three I mentioned above. It can be a habit, it can be a skill that can be mastered, which eventually becomes a trait, part of our character. In this class, we learned that critical thinking in the process of argumentation is a social process where we make up our minds with respect to acting and communicating with others. To further this point, I think self-awareness, reflecting upon our own thinking, and the ability to be open-minded towards others' opinions are the critical features of critical thinking. What are the barriers to robust critical thinking? In our everyday lives, we have police officers, we have the professors in the institutions, and doctors in the medical field. We see police officers and our first instinct is to stay away from anything illegal when in fact we're not even aware of our rights. We tend to get nervous and forget to think critically for the benefit of that certain situation. We trust professors' knowledge without questioning, without knowing if the facts are valid and reliable. Why? Because they're authoritative figures in our lives. We trust our physicians to make decisions regarding our health, which will lead to either proper care and treatment or misdiagnosis, costing the healthcare industry billions of dollars annually, or more importantly, the health of many patients. As we learned throughout this 10-week course, the topic of global warming is absolutely controversial. But during our debates, it gave us the opportunity to master our skills in critical thinking. First, we learned to think empirically and not theoretically. What do I mean by this? We learned to constantly check one's views against evidence from the world and have the courage to change positions if enough evidence and assertions are provided. For example, I was the governing leader for the topic global warming is catastrophic, and I had my contentions and assertions provided to you guys. However, I changed my opinion at the end of the debate because my opponents provided enough assertions and contentions for me to change my mind. We learned to have the ability to think in terms of multiple rather than single causes. This means, for example, possessing the knowledge that climate change, for example, is affected by many factors and not just a single cause. We learn to be aware and understand our own biases. We're full of unconscious biases, and the failure to acknowledge these leads to poor decision-making. This leads to my next point, the BS detector. During our debates, when we heard our opponents speak, our BS detectors would go on as they stated each of our contentions. All of us were sitting on the opposing side and shaking our heads as we heard assertions and contentions that we did not agree with. My BS detector went off when I heard that according to NASA, sea levels rise due to other factors and not solely because of climate change, as stated by my opponent. The way I fixed a problem is understanding where she's coming from, the research she's conducted, and change my opinion. To expand the use of our BS detector, it's imperative to provide the credible sources we obtain our information from, and if our opponents are not able to provide the sources, this is a way to ask for them. The more we question somebody's sources, the higher level of criticism we experience toward the facts provided to us. The more we question their facts, if they're from credible sources, the more efficient we become in critical thinking. This course taught me to be open-minded, take a position, change if enough evidence and reasoning is provided, take into account the whole situation, remain relevant to the main point, and most importantly, put emphasis on other people's feelings and not hurt them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. He sung song. He's not here? Dun, 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 dun. Okay, could the next 5 people please come forward? Austin, nice name. Kayla, Carmen, C-Pand, and Daniel.
You also want to get also Aaron?
Let's
get Aaron too.
Get Aaron too? Okay. Blue.
Colcos.
Okay, Austin.
Thank you.
Okay, class come to order, please. Okay, Austin, we're rolling.
Perfect. Okay, so I'm sure a lot of people in here have entered classes and heard a teacher say, I want you to think critically about the topics we discuss in this course. And then that's kind of the last thing they say about it. Critical thinking is known as objective analysis and evaluation of an issue in order to form a judgment. So over the course of the last 10 weeks, we've been able to look at really controversial issues of climate change, and this has honed our ability to think critically. Although we've refined our positions on climate change, it seems, according to the last and the first that evaluation we took, where we put down what we believe, it seems as though we're still really confused about the nature of climate change. So the first thing I want to talk about is how critical thinking is taught. John Passmore discusses this issue in his paper on teaching to be critical. He contends that teaching critical thinking is more than imparting facts or skills or habits. Knowing the facts of critical thinking doesn't allow you to implement them. Habits might be rote. It doesn't entail that you understand the reason for the behavior. And he says that it's not a skill. I kind of disagree with that, but he says it's more of a character trait than anything. Students must look creatively at values and they must look critically at the values of the activities they engage in, and they must be taught by an individual who themselves can engage in critical discussion, talking about really controversial issues and things like that. He says that critical thinking can be fostered or discouraged as the part of teaching of any subject, even if some subjects provide more opportunities for doing so, at least in the early stages, than others. So any topic you're learning about in your classes, you can learn how to become better critical thinkers through that. I think that this is especially true for our debate class. So in this class, we had to debate specific positions about a controversial issue like climate change. Most of us were able to find good evidence to support positions that we might not have held previously. We had to construct strong arguments and expose weaknesses in our opponent's arguments. So what did we learn about critical thinking by doing this? We learned that debate facilitates critical thinking by promoting a free market of ideas. You have to present a bunch of different ideas, and this allows each idea to be heard, even if they're not as popular. Many of us had really strong opinions on these issues, and prior to the debates, we may have dismissed the opponent's arguments just on surface level. We might not have listened to them. Although we might try to achieve a high degree of courage and integrity in evaluating our own positions, the debate really allows that to happen because the ideas are presented. It doesn't rely on your own internal mechanisms to self-evaluation. So before coming into this class, I understood that critical thinking requires analysis, synthesis, and interpretation, or evaluation. I had to take a class in community college where we had to really make good papers that showed the steps of analysis, synthesis, and then finally evaluation. And what I learned, though, upon entering this class is that critical thinking isn't enough. I mean, rhetoric alone isn't sufficient. You need to engage in dialogue. This is how there's like a back and forth, there's an exchange, and that way you can push forward the better ideas. So if left to your own devices, you might miss some things, which is why the debate is important. So about bullshit detectors. Weak arguments are not always obvious on the surface. It's best to maintain a skeptical attitude. That doesn't mean that you dismiss everything that you hear, but you should just be more skeptical. So if you get a text message from a friend at 2:43 in the morning that says, "Did you know elephants are colorblind?" Don't believe them. You don't need to necessarily say that that's nonsense, but just suspend your belief. What I learned specifically through the journal assignments is that the best way to detect bad arguments is through just direct questions. So whenever you hear something, whenever you hear claims made, continue asking questions, and that will expose the weaknesses in their arguments. Thank you.
Thank you, Austin. Okay. House come to order, please. We'll now hear from Kayla.
Hi everyone, I'm Kayla.
Hi, Kayla.
So I just want to start off with, when we're coming into this class, it's definitely not a normal class that we've seen at UCLA. Like we're used to seeing, I mean, I know some people have mentioned that, but you know, we're used to having a professor teach us everything that they know, which is obviously their job, but we're never really told to necessarily critically think about it. And so I feel like this class has somewhat forced us to think critically about these issues. And so when I came into this class, I realized, and I looked at the syllabus, I remember I was kind of shocked that we were going to be arguing global warming for the entire time, because I really didn't think there was much to argue with it, because I was so dead set on that it's actually happening, that's occurring. I've just taken so many classes that have showed me that. But then after watching the great global warming sondol, I realized that there are so many arguments that can go on the opposition side. And this class really had me doubting everything I once deemed as true after debating these issues. And so I think that can show you the power of critical thinking and debating that we've noticed. But in general, this class has taught me the importance of evidence when building credibility, the use of utilizing ethos, pathos, and logos when trying to get the audience's attention and respect, and also, has also formulated my BS protector beyond belief. So the first week we mentioned, I know we mentioned this a lot, but the poll mentioned that the class was very much thought global warming was a continued threat. We had many debates where the opposition side was able to convince the audience otherwise. But I think that it also set a reasonable doubt in the audience, which is huge. So in order to do that, evidence is a major reasoning technique. There were some debates where I agree with everything the proposition was stating because of their evidence, but then somehow the delivery and the stage presence of the opposition was able to get me on their side. So then that goes to show you that you can have all the evidence in the world, but if you don't know how to deliver it correctly, if you don't know how to implement it correctly, no one's going to listen to you. And so I think that's where ethos, pathos, and logos comes in. We saw this with pathos we mentioned. We saw that Kai mentioned the inadequate air quality in China, not being able to having to wear like a mask. That obviously gets an emotional connection in the audience. We also noticed with Julia, with ethos, and Austin with ethos, that when she's an economics major, so when she was arguing environmental versus economic issues, clearly we're going to think that she's very, very knowledgeable regarding the topic. Also, with logos, we saw that Lana, even though she did somewhat come across a little bit of like harsh to the audience, she did implement logical and applicable arguments that was able to really get the audience going. Okay, and so the debates offered a platform for critical discussion, and so John Passmore also states that to encourage the critical spirit as distinct from professional competence as a critic of techniques, a teacher has to develop in his pupils an enthusiasm for the give and take of critical discussion. And so the debates have offered us a perfect platform in which to have this critical spirit. In conclusion, critical thinking is not an easy task and has often been very frustrating, but when it is achieved, it can prove to make an argument stronger than ever. So we hear both sides, research, find evidence, and you'll be surprised at what you're able to discover. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
You had a full minute and 15 seconds left. You want to keep talking?
Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to hear about Milgram. You have something to say about Milgram?
Oh yeah, that's what I was going to. I guess I wanted to get to the part where I feel like how it's important on college. I feel like we're going through this trend on college campuses where we're not necessarily wanting to hear sides that we don't necessarily agree with, and I feel like that's sort of. I've taken Professor Fink's class in 172, and I realized that you're never going to learn that way. If you continually only hear what you've been used to hearing, you're never going to learn, you're never going to be able to make your argument stronger, and I think this class has taught us to hear both sides of the story and make your arguments a lot stronger in that aspect. And my BS detector grew in the fact that I'm able to notice that that people give reasonings based upon their bias and a personal opinion rather than actually passed by evidence. And I think with we need to learn to be more critical for help and to question authority, just like simply what Milgram believed. He thought that we were going to just simply go with authority taught us to believe, but I think if you continually question, not necessarily disobey authority per se, but maybe notice that they have some credibility, but also don't take that credibility and question it yourself. So yeah, as I said, you need to learn to be critical. Hear both sides, research, find evidence, and yeah, thanks.
Good. Thank you. Okay. Carmen Dragon. Self-evaluation.
Well, he's here.
Oh, okay. Are you ready? Yeah. Okay. Rock and roll, Carmen.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Class, come to order, please.
My name is Carmen. Okay, so I'd like to
Hi,
first start
Carmen.
off with. Hi. I'd like to first start off with sharing a quote from John Passamore in his book on teaching to be critical. In order to think critically and progress, one must have prior knowledge of the matter. And by this, he means that an individual can only make good sound decisions, if they have knowledge prior. So that means if they learned it or if they researched it beforehand. And that's what we've been doing most of our lives. We've been students, we've gone to class, we've learned the material, and then we've regurgitated it. But as on the matter of critical thinking, that's the next step. After you learn this stuff, you gotta actually process it and really form your own beliefs on issues that are controversial to everyone. So I'd like to, there's two things that I'd like to talk in my speech. One is what I learned in this class, and then the second is addressing what Passamore's claims of critical thinking as a skill and critical thinking as a character trait. So critical thinking is based on reasoning, the ability to form and analyze arguments and refutations. The class has learned the steps of argumentation and also the 4 steps of refutation. We've practiced argumentation by analyzing Steve Jobs' commencement speech and forming our own assertions and reasons why. We've practiced also researching on global warming, and I've learned that from these debates, I learned that nothing is black and white. Everything is always multifaceted. And by that, I mean that there are numerous aspects that an individual should consider when basing his or her decisions. There's economical, environmental, political, and social reasons. And an individual shouldn't base their decision on one fact. They should look at the whole, all the aspects. Our class has discussed and listened to the impacts of global warming. For example, global warming has caused the growth of the renewable energy industry. Debates have highlighted the benefits in the economy and environment due to an environmentally friendly energy source. However, it's also highlighted the costs. We've highlighted the costs, like how developing countries can't possibly afford these technologies. Critical thinking involves the consideration of all aspects of an issue, discerning the indications from science reports, and having a criteria to judge the reasonings by.
Good.
Personally, I believe that my BS detector has evolved over the course of the quarter. I used to believe that, or I used to easily believe whatever people said to me, but from this class I learned that, yes, I should actually think and examine what they're saying and what their evidence is.
Perfect.
The Milgram experiment on obedience highlights that people naturally obey authoritative figures, but by working on critical thinking, it's a way to combat blind obedience. So I'd like to just share one more quote from Passamore. He says that debates are more likely to develop forensic skills than to encourage a genuinely critical spirit, but I believe by establishing the basic and foundations of argumentation, that only then can you start developing this critical spirit. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. What was the time?
4 exactly.
4:07?
4 exactly.
4 exactly. Thank you. Okay, let's hear from Hee Sung Song. Thank you, sir. Oh, you're tall. Yes, you are. Okay, gotcha.
Hello everyone, my name is Sising.
Hi, Sising.
I just want to start off my speech with a personal reflection that I had about this class coming in. Personally, this is my second class with Professor Miller, and coming in, I had some kind of a knowledge about debate and kind of extemporaneous impromptu speeches from his previous class, and I came into this class thinking that, oh, this is basic of argumentation, basis of debate, and I kind of approached it in the sense where, oh, I think it would be pretty easy. You know, just debating, refuting arguments. But I think I got to gain the personal reflection of how, like, even simple things such as refuting an argument could bring intense improvements in, like, the argumentation that we have. And that ties into the main argument that I want to point out is that we garnered the skills in this class in order to tie back to multiple things that we referenced in this class, such as, you know, debate skills overall, and the experiments that we discussed in this classroom, such as the Milgram experiment, and critical thinking skills that we can do outside of this debate in order to actually discuss argumentation. First, I want to talk about the skills that we actually learned. First and foremost, we talked about the three aspects of Aristotle, which talks about ethos, logos, and pathos, and how that ties into when a person is making argumentation, how that could improve someone's flow of argumentation. Secondly, we talk about the research skills and how having credible research skills can improve your argumentation. Third, the ability for individuals at the end of this class to have switch side debate skills, to have the knowledge of debating both sides and be able to be on the right side. And four, having the ability to be a judge to all these debates and having an insight on how to make decision-making skills based on, like, what we learned in class. And lastly is the BS detector that we utilize using these skills that we learned. I think using these skills in this class, we were able to implement multiple skills, such as, especially in the debate round, as a judge or as participants, we were able to use our BS detectors or utilize the 4 stages of refutations to see if the participants are making the right arguments or utilizing their arguments in a correct manner. And secondly, I think the skills that we learned in this class are crucial to challenging authoritative figures like we talked about in the Milgram experiment, because the more we utilize argumentations and use the skills in order to, you know, have better logical sense of, like, what we want to say to authoritative figures, whether they are personal or in professional settings, we could definitely utilize these skills in order to challenge these authoritative figures. Third is kind of critical thinking skills that we talk about in our daily life. As Pastor Moore says, analyzing is key to drawing conclusions and drawing feedback of what your argumentation is. And I think ultimately what we learned in this class, whether it's logical fallacies or just the 3 skills of Aristotle, it leads to analyzing at the end of the day. And I believe BS detector, you know, judging in debate rounds, arguing different switch-side debate leads to better analyzing of argument, like what Pastor Moore talks about, leads to better conclusions of arguments. And I think all these skills are ultimately going to help us not only in this classroom, but further on outside of the classroom we're talking about on personal, professional level. So basically in this class, in summary, I think we learned very key life lessons to actually utilize in professional as well as personal settings. I personally think that I gained a lot through 2 classes I took with Professor Miller about how to approach people in terms of argumentation, how to refute properly to argumentations that people might have, whether they are just fact, value, or policy debate. Specifically for me, debating a fact debate really enabled me to influence and utilize my evidence and to be able to refute argumentations using proper evidence as well.
Thank you, V-Sing. Okay, is that everyone on deck? Okay, let's have C-Pan, Daniel, Aaron, Ian Greer, and Zeeming.
I didn't know that you call me
my name
Ian
to Jermaine soon.
first.
Yeah.
Funny guy.
Yeah, funny guy. We're abandoning us.
Sapon, Daniel, Aaron, Ian, and then
Sapand, Daniel, Aaron, Ian, Zimming. Okay. Hands out of your pocket.
So I'm Sapand.
Hi,
I
Sapand.
wanted to talk about what I learned in this class, what I know now about critical thinking, and about my BS detector. So first, I guess in my debate I was kind of too passionate. And something I asked Zach before, right after the debate was, if you had a choice of whether I was like that or, I was more civilized and more relaxed, which would you have chosen? And I think you said stay the way you were, because you said like it may have rubbed off people in the wrong way, but in the end you have to admit they did listen. And I saw exactly what you meant in a couple debates after when David and Lana were talking. They were super passionate as well, and you may not have agreed with what they were saying, but something you have to admit is you were 100% focused and you were listening to exactly what they were saying. And I think especially in debate, when for an audience they have all this information coming, if the speaker can do something that makes that whole comprehension process easier, then it's perfect. And especially for fact debates, since the audience doesn't have enough time to research everything themselves, if a debater can show a lot of passion in what they're saying, it kind of shows the audience member, you've done a week or two of research on it. If you're this, passionate about what you believe in, then you're probably right about what you're saying compared to the other debater. Another thing I learned was how important confidence is, because in the end, you can have the best arguments in the world, but if you don't have the confidence or the delivery to say it, it carries no weight. And I kind of saw that in Lana in her debates. Whenever someone was cross-exing her, they had really good questions, but her confidence kind of like, I disagreed with what you were saying, but I really liked your confidence and I really admired it. The last thing I learned was the importance of having like a KO statement, like a finishing statement at the end of your debate. And what I mean by that is something that supersedes all other arguments. Like something I used in my debate was, putting everything aside, if you really want to know who's right, let's put our facts to the test and let's look at predictions. And that's when I talked about the predictions of scientists. If humans were responsible, how were the predictions on each side and who was right? And another debate for reducing carbon emissions, if it's a good policy. I think something the opposition could have said was, this debate has been had before in other countries. They sided with the government. They enacted a carbon tax only to have it repealed years later. So something like that, something that supersedes all other arguments, that's like a test of what your facts are, I think is a really good thing to have. Yeah, for my BS detector, I've definitely gotten more skeptical as the years gotten by. Something, especially in debates, that kind of like bothered me was when debaters would make like analogies that I sometimes felt was an overextension. Especially like in the debate about the role of politics in science, I really didn't appreciate whenever the comparison was made with government funding of climate change to government funding of smallpox and like vitamin A deficiency, because something that's bringing me up was like, there's no debate on that side, but whereas for climate change, there's been a debate for how long. But how I'm going to use my BS detector outside this class, we didn't really have time to talk about the Milgram experiment that much in class, but I looked at it in Psych 10, and it's pretty much how like the position of authority can push you to go beyond where your comfort zone is. So I think like, and that kind of makes sense with Passmore when he's talking about how hard critical thinking is, that the influence of authority figures, it might hinder the critical thinking process. It might make you stop thinking about what's really going on.
You got it.
So to end, I learned to be more of an independent thinker, and whenever you hear what someone says, especially if it's a politician, don't necessarily take their word for it. Be an independent thinker, be a critical thinker, do your own research, and at the end, make your own decision. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, wait, this is the outline. Do you have a paper?
Where's your paper?
I did two on the side.
Oh, did you give me?
my place to write.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so there's a paper and that one.
Okay, good. Okay, let me get Daniel in focus. You're a little taller than most. There you go. Okay, class come to order. Daniel, rock and roll.
So for me, one of the biggest issues that I've always struggled with was clarity and organization in my argumentation. And coming into this class, obviously, I said to myself, okay, I'm going to have to be supporting something that I might not stand for. So how am I going to make a clear and organized argument that that doesn't even, resonate with something that I agree with? And that was really the main challenge of this class. But I think that this investigation process is what Passmore was talking about with making critical thinking a habit. Because if it's something that becomes second nature to you, you can pretty much say whatever you want about anything because it's supported by good evidence and good reasoning. And so Passmore says that it's a habit that can be learned. A lot of people have been mentioning how this is some sort of like a muscle that needs to be developed, and I definitely agree with that. So to be able to have constructive and substantive precision in the dialectic, there needs to be that habit formed of critical thinking. So there's 4 things I want to say today that are really my takeaways from this class. The 4 steps of argumentation have really helped with my ability to form organized arguments. The 3 components of credibility have allowed me to take my organized and clear points and turn them into something that makes a convincing argument. My BS detector, the 4 steps of refutation, and the Milgram experiment. So to start off with, you have the 4 steps of argumentation, and assertion, which is making a claim that suggests something to be true or not. So this is, we all know what asserting your point is. I think that this is one of the most essential points for clarity. Coming into this, I think that one of my problems was that I would not make it clear to people what I'm trying to say. And so leaving this class, I definitely know that that's one of the most important pieces, is to be clear about what you're trying to say. So giving a reason, why do you believe that's true? That's kind of like obvious. But the evidence, you're going to give good supporting facts and evidence to what you're trying to say. And then the impact is just another component as to why you're saying this. Why is this important? Why is this relevant to a conversation that you're trying to have? And so once again, if the audience is not clear on this assertion, it's difficult for these reasons and evidence to relate to a debate or a conversation that you're trying to have. That can be detrimental to your debate. So this clarity only goes so far if it's credible, though. So you could have such a clear point, but if there's no credibility supporting this clear and organized argument, then it's kind of going to go down the drain. So being trustworthy. You saw in Al Gore's sincerity, honesty, and straightforwardness in Inconvenient Truth. You saw his expertness of being a citizen, a scientist, and a scholar, and his dynamism, which was his being active on stage. All 3 of these allowed him to have a credible stage presence, which, without having my BS detector, I was unable to recognize some of the fallacies about the big picture of Inconvenient Truth. So that's where the BS detector comes in. Examples of fallacy can be preconceived opinions, hasty generalizations, post hoc, straw man, and begging the question, and being able to recognize that these are problems in people's arguments allows you to avoid the fallacies. So being able to demand facts, examine the rules, demand the relevance, being specific about the assumption, and demanding proof. These are all essential components to a critical thinking toolbox that is portable. So this portable toolbox you can take anywhere and know that by using your refutation, They say, but we disagree because therefore that you can pretty much take anything that someone's trying to say and really ask yourself.
Okay, let's hear about Milgram. You're out of time.
Okay, so given that individuals are susceptible to the conformity of groupthink, this portable toolbox is essential because it allows you to take what a big group of people is trying to say and say, okay, I disagree with that, here's why.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Aaron. They're back. Hi, Aaron.
Hi.
How you doing? What? Okay, rock and roll, Aaron. Class, come to order, please.
Alright, hi guys, my name's Aaron.
Hi, Aaron.
I'll start off my final speech in this quarter with this simple story. It's a story about an intelligent dolphin. So this dolphin, he was the smartest animal in the animal kingdom. There was no animal that could rival it. This dolphin had, he could solve crazy computations and do the craziest equations, and he solved all of life's problems, but the problem was that this dolphin was alone. He was isolated in the ocean, away from all the other mammals. Now, in contrast, there's another animal, a sheep. Now, the sheep wasn't the brightest or the sharpest tool in the shed, to say the least, but what this sheep had going for it is the fact that he was surrounded by community. He would frequently talk to his neighbors around him, he would dialogue, he would influence those around him, and at the end of the day, the sheep and the dolphin would both eventually pass, but the difference is the dolphin died alone, and the sheep died surrounded by a community, making an impact and influencing others. Now, what have I learned from this course? There's many things I learned from this course, but I believe my learning experience can be summarized with the experience that the sheep had, given in my story. You know, this class doesn't teach computations, it doesn't teach literary analysis of an English course, it doesn't teach you know, innovations of an engineering class, but it does teach the valuable life skills of effective public speaking, argumentation, critical thinking, and I believe this is the main takeaways that I really took from this course, and I believe that it has huge implications for just life in general. Passmore suggests that critical thinking must be encouraged in education, and without it, education is limited to just rote learning, practicing of habits rather than skills, and just blind observance to rules. This class put to practice Passmore's assertions, and in this speech I hope to illustrate how argumentation skills has developed over the course of this class through establishing credibility, critical thinking, and development of a BS detector. So two particular skills that I took away from this course is critical thinking and speaking ability. Critical thinking, as we learned, is the essential building block for the